Now, this morning, we have, as you can see, our plate is full. Number of issues to deal with. But, preliminarily, the Central Bank Governor, Dr. Henry Kofi Wampa, took an early retirement 4 months before the end of his term in August 2016. And we still don't know exactly why. His successor, Dr. Abdul Nashiru Isahaku, on March 29, 2017, resigned 3 years to the end of his tenure, assigning, quote, personal reasons, unquote, to pave the way for the appointment of current Governor Dr. Ernest Addison. Yesterday, Second Deputy Governor Dr. Johnson Assiama tendered in his resignation letter, also under unexplained circumstances. Well, his lawyers issued a statement last night alleging he was forced out. But how? Victor Kojoga Adaudu joins us on the phone briefly. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thompson, it's a pleasure.
Right.
And good morning to you and the panelists and the cherished listeners.
Right. Reading the content of your letter on behalf of your clients, he was forced out, he was hounded out of the place became uncomfortable for him. So how exactly was your client forced out and why?
Thank you, Thompson. I believe the press statement is clear. And you could also see that before the man was even to resign, there has been an earlier communication that the man has resigned when he's still at post. I believe some people within, were not comfortable with him being at his position and have always indicated that they wanted him out of office so that they could get their own person to be appointed. I believe this was a kind of discussion that was going on until we realized that things were not as it was. It was becoming unfriendly. Functions that he has to perform. A lot of things have been taken out from him, and it was becoming a little bit unsupportive, uncooperative. And considering all on the reflection, the best thing for him and his family, and in the broader interest of this nation, was to bow out.
Interesting. You say a lot of things were taken away from him, as in things that disabled him from functioning well, properly, in that job as deputy governor. What are some of these things that were taken away from him? And you must note that your press release is unprecedented. So far, all those who have exited, none have issued a press release explaining why they left.
No, Samson, the reason why the press release came was to just express our deep heartfelt support that we had from well-wishers, we had from the populace when it was clear that they wanted him out of office. It was a difficult time, and a lot of people stood with us in prayers and everything.
Yeah, my specific question is, what are some of these things that were taken away from him, as you allege? This man has been at the bank for over 2 decades.
Yes, over 2 decades. Something when you are working as a team and you are not being fed with information or in your regular function, you are being relegated. You are not being put into the picture what goes on. It just tells you that the environment is not conducive for you to work again. It is not just to take, but when impediments are being put on your way, you are not getting information to work with. There's no need to still hang on. Yes, it will have been his wish that he will stay and work. But the way things are, there's no way that he could be there.
Okay, so you say he tendered in his resignation. I will suspect that he must have done so for a severance package he's satisfied with, right?
No, not really. I believe that there is a precedent to all the governments and people who, when they leave their office, what it is done. I think those are part of conditions and terms of his service. And that is what we expect should be done.
Okay. Thank you very much. Victor Kojoga Adaudu is a lawyer.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Is a lawyer for Dr. Johnson Assiama, who yesterday tendered in his resignation as second deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. And the information from him is that he was forced out of his job prematurely. Let me welcome Kojo Opong Nkrumah, Deputy Information Minister, MP4 of Wasi Ayerebi, to the studio.
Thank you, Samson.
Thanks for coming. Now, Kojo, critics of your government say the trend says one must be MPP to be a citizen deserving of a job in this country?
Good morning, Samson, and good morning to my colleagues in the studio this morning. And as we start, I think it's appropriate also for us to share our thoughts and our prayers with the family of our colleague Alhaji Bature, who passed.
I was hoping for us to do that to close the show.
Yesterday.
Not to start us on a sad note, but it's okay, go ahead.
I think it hits all of us. So,
right, it does.
We need to start in that manner. To the best of my understanding, the Bank of Ghana is a semi-autonomous institution. And it's one of the rich institutions in terms of its administrative structures and operations over the years. And yesterday there was a part in the statement that my good friend Kojoga Adaudu had issued, which I actually agreed with. And I was even going to start by supporting him this morning.
Okay.
And the part that I agreed with is the worry of his that there are some news publications that seek to, as it were,
smear him.
Smear.
We call them smear campaigns.
Yes, smear his client. You would remember I am one who's always argued that this media smearing of people until you have evidence proven against them is not something we should encourage, because it makes all of us endangered species. And I think that to that extent, we can all speak to ourselves as people in the media to literally cease and desist. But then my disappointment is that my brother Adaudu now is doing the same thing this morning to the Bank of Ghana, talking about the fact that, because I know Mr. Assiama himself is a very calm person. I'm not sure he's coming out to say these things, but now his lawyer comes out and says...
acts on the instructions of their clients.
Yes, and now
if
he's
your
coming
client
out,
doesn't say, you don't say.
Well, so that's why I say I have a bit of disappointment in that area, because the Bank of Ghana is not here to also speak for itself and to explain what has gone on in there. I think it may be appropriate to find out, now that he's coming out with these allegations, to find out from the Bank of Ghana what circumstances have occasioned his resignation. But I think that none of us win if we go on this tangent. If the man has quit his job, if he seeks to explain his reasons, there must be some fact to back it. But if you say he was relegated, impediments were put in his way, it appears to be politically motivated, and the Bank of Ghana is not here to speak for itself, we are left in a fix. And I'd like to encourage him to literally stay in the spirit of his own statement that he issued.
Dr. Isayaku has said he resigned for personal reasons.
Yes.
Personal reasons.
Yes.
But we knew that persons within the NPP and the government, including Anthony Akutose, who is now the man in charge of monitoring and evaluation ministry, had said that his continuous stay as a governor was untenable. He should check out.
But is that
and allow Akufo-Addo to appoint someone else.
But is that the reason that Dr. Isayaku gave? People are allowed to express their views and express their sentiments. But what is the reason that Dr. Isayaku gave? So if he says it's for personal reasons, I'd like to take him at his word.
Okay.
If anybody has counter information let's put that one specifically on the table and deal with it. I've always maintained
some said that was obvious. He was being diplomatic about the situation, but this man has decided to come forward and to say he was hounded out unfairly.
I have always maintained that innuendos and you know, comments like that in the background are difficult to interrogate. There could also be 1,001 reasons. So if we are in the spirit of that saying that let us stick to what we know, let's stick to what we know.
But this government, you know, is not acting in a way to suggest that you must be MPP to be a citizen deserving of a job in this country?
I do not think so. I mean, I can give you my office, for example. The people I went to meet at my office are not working there because of a political card or color that they hold or do not hold. They are professionals in their role and they're acting accordingly.
Okay. Joyce, you're a lawyer. An employer reserves the right to hire and fire. So why do we cry over these?
Well, thank you very much, Samson. Dismissals, reprisals, recommendations, name them. I would find it very strange, and I'm sure many Ghanaians would agree with us this morning, especially after having listened to Kojo. Why would it be that the minute a new government takes office, not just the governor who resigns for personal reasons, the deputy governor who's been there for well over 2 decades resigns as well, and in pretty much similar mysterious circumstances? Notwithstanding the fact that the Bank of Ghana is our central bank, it is also a bank that is actually set up by an act of parliament. It is a constitutional body created largely for its independence. We recall in times past, as far back as 2012, there was a very, very fervent debate about opening these opportunities to serve as head of the central bank to the larger general public, to reduce the partisanship, to ensure their independence above everything else, and of course to remove as much as possible government's, whatever you want to call it, maybe pseudo interference in the management and leadership of the Central Bank of Ghana. Having put this in proper perspective, I now wonder why someone like Assiama, a few months after his boss resigned for personal reasons, will likewise resign too. You know, because the statement has come out and has been issued by his legal representative, you now try very much as possible to stay within the light and spirit of that statement. But of course, let's recall that under our labor laws in the world over, we also have things that are called constructive actions by an employer that can make an employee's life untenable, impossible to operate, affecting your judgment as an employee, etc. I believe that that statement actually speaks volumes. And to put any interpretation on it really would actually give room for several modes of interpretation. The primary one that I put on it, that this is tantamount to constructive dismissal of a man whose record is otherwise untarnished, a man who is well qualified for the job, a man who is very well respected in the industry. Recall that the Bank of Ghana Act ensures that a president at any given time will appoint a governor and his 2 deputies. They are actually vetted by the Council of State. And I believe that members of the Council of State at any given time under this 4th Republic have been individuals of great repute whose judgments cannot be in doubt. That the competence of these individuals for the offices for which they were recruited is likely not in doubt, as they have a track record well proven, and it's a matter of public record as well. But you see, I would also want to serve notice to the individuals who are lacing their boots, to those who wait to take up these appointments when these individuals are forcibly pushed out, that the same way that your predecessor left, recall that your successor will be planning your demise and exit as well. So for my part, I would like to say it's a two-way street, that irrespective of the fact that there's a new government, that the power allows you to do just about anything, frustrate anybody, create the wrong impressions about any individual, say just about anything. And I'm sure my brother Kojo knows that if he were in the same shoes as these individuals, look, these are people who have families who depend on them. Extended families, immediate families, direct people that they have several benefactors. The job of a governor of a Bank of Ghana is a huge constituency, larger than we even imagine, even for some members of parliament. This is no mean opportunity for any individual. And for a government to forcibly push out such an individual without any reference to the person's lack of integrity or otherwise. Indeed, there must be ways in which you remove such officers. And I am told that it's like you do for High Court or Court of Appeal judges. We haven't heard of any such procedures. We haven't heard of any such reasons. And I do know what it feels like when you are forced out of a job.
Okay. Well, she mentioned constructive dismissal, and for the benefit of all of us, constructive dismissal, she's explained it many ways. It simply, means in law that your employer is doing things to you, the employee, that frustrate you, that change your employment position. I mean, basically renders you in a situation where you have to resign. So that is constructive dismissal. And the law doesn't look well on that. Now, Sammy, these are adults resigning. What's the big deal, really?
Well, thank you, Samson, and good morning to the panel. Good morning to our viewers and listeners. And let me extend New Year greetings to everybody. We pray that the good Lord will bless our efforts this year, give us good health and long life, and bless our hopes and aspirations. Let me also join Kojo in extending deepest commiserations with the family and loved ones of Alhaji Bature.
Right.
I'll be joining the family after here for the funeral, so
okay.
I would be able to extend personally my condolences. Samson, the matter we are discussing is a very, very serious one. It's very grave.
Right. Somebody resigns and it becomes our job to make it a serious business.
Samson, it is, because we are talking about the Bank of Ghana. There is the Bank of Ghana Act 2002, Act 612. Section 3 of the Act is very, very clear. Section 3.2 says, without prejudice to subsection 1, the bank shall support the general economic policy of the government and promote economic growth and effective and efficient operation of banking and credit systems in the country, independent of instructions from the government or any other authority. Independent. Emphasis mine. If you go through the general tenor of the Act, Parliament, the executive, everybody who worked on this bill knew that the main thrust, objective for passing Act 612 was to strengthen the Bank of Ghana and create for us a very independent institution. Now, you have a situation where counsel to Dr. Johnson Assiama, and I say it's serious, it's grave, because this is the first time that we are getting an insight into these resignations. You have the first paragraph of the statement dated January 5th, 2018. It reads, on behalf of our client, Dr. Johnson P. Assiama, we wish to thank all and sundry for the overwhelming support shown during the recent machinations to get our client out of office, unquote. This is revealing, startling. And it leaves everybody without a doubt that this is not a voluntary resignation. Clearly, it is not. Now, Samson, I am worried that we haven't had governors, deputy governors, stand up to principle and stand up to the law, to test the law. It appears to me that, well, they don't mind, okay, government is powerful, I don't want to fight government, let me just take my entitlements. And if you listen to his lawyer carefully, he is expecting that government will do the right thing. Now, let us ask ourselves that if Ghana was our private companies, will we run it this way? Why do I ask that question? Because as we speak, government and the taxpayer, for that matter, you and I, we are going to be paying for 2 governors in a long time, at least for the next 2 years, we'll be paying for 2 governors, the current governor and Dr. Isahaku Nashiru, his entitlements. And then we are now going to be paying this deputy governor, Dr. Assiama, who has been forced out because his contract did not expire. We are going to be paying him, and then there's going to be an appointment settling. Often when government does this, we have seen in the case of Dr. Nashiru, they had somebody in mind, and we've already heard the name. We know who is going there. We know that. And so you're going to... Who's going there? You, don't worry, I'll tell you.
Okay. You were pointing us to the law, because you are being very brief about this. Yes. You can take us there.
So what's going to happen is that you're going to be paying 2 governors, you're going to be paying 2 deputy governors. If Ghana was your company, will you run it that way? So that's the first problem I have. Financial loss to the state, waste of resources. We don't need that. Now, I was also talking about the fact that these individuals appear to want to just, capitulate and succumb to pressure and just move out, take their entitlements. It shouldn't always be about the money. I respect Dr. Assiama. I'm sure he can live without it, but this is right. But let's test the law. Let's go to court. And I recall that when my good old uncle, Uncle Samuel Kujeto, he was not in the governor role or deputy governor role. He was on the board. Yes. And good old Professor Mills, God bless his soul, had thought that board changes, it could be general across the board. Samuel Kujeto went to the courts to test that decision. And got a favorable pronouncement. So there's precedent. And the courts have held that Bank of Ghana is independent.
As you indicate, that's a separate issue. So can you quickly... why you say they don't test the law? Why do you think they could get anything if they tested the law?
They should have gone to court to say
that is if they are...
Yes, that they're clearly being forced out, and the independence of the Bank of Ghana is at stake. And I'm sure that the courts will have insisted that the government should back off in the spirit of Act 6.1, the spirit and letter of Act 6.1.2. But you have a situation where they seem to succumb and walk away. It's really sad. And something finally, I'm wondering where all the voices are who said not too long ago when President Mahama was in charge that we need to take a second look at this winner takes all. That is not good for our country, that when a party wins, even independent institutions are affected. We are seeing other constitutional bodies as we speak.
Thank you.
You know what is happening at the Electoral Commission. The Electoral Commissioner is going through
Thank you. I'm sorry, but this was meant to be very brief. Now, Martin, what can he ventured into aspects of the law? What can such officers of such constitutional, with such constitutional protections for their job, what can they do if forced out?
Okay. Basically, I'm sure being a lawyer, the first answer would be that we would say the person should go to the law court. Okay, that's notionally. But practically, I don't take that view. You see, on the specifics of this matter, this Bank of Ghana matter, I should tell you straight out that I think that in practice, the Bank of Ghana, the governor and the deputies are politicians. They must have the same mindset as the president. So where the president comes and then he wants them out, to be very practical, that is not something we should fight. So I'm very surprised that in 2016, Parliament passed a new law. They amended the Bank of Ghana Act and sought to give these deputies security of tenure. So I was like, what? I mean, can't we learn from our experiences? Look, for crying out loud, these are politicians. The president must be comfortable with these persons. So let's not pretend to say, oh, we need it to be independent, so they should be insulated. No, if the president is not comfortable, it won't work. So actually, I would lay the blame at the doorstep of Parliament for passing such a law so late in the day, when we've had prior experience suggesting that when each president comes, he wants to have his own people at the helm of the central bank. So Parliament hasn't done us any favors at all. They haven't done a good job. You see, when you pass a law, you should look at your experiences too. Why do you pass a law saying that the deputy governor should have 4 years of a tenure, that security of tenure, knowing very well that our experience shows that this will not work? So, and as Sam rightly pointed out, now we are having to pay these persons for the residue of their tenure of office. So in essence, that's financial loss, albeit caused by Parliament. So we should learn from our experience. Let's not, and you know, these things are not new. Each government comes, you know, the busiest times, the Apollo 5, something, over 500 civil servants. Fast forward, you come, when Professor Mills took over, you know, Atifa was kicked out of office. There was no plausible reason given. We could give 1,000 examples. So that's why I said, for me, knowing that we've had these several examples from our history, I wonder what Parliament was doing really when they passed that law, seeking to insulate these persons. That's my opinion on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Now,
Ghana, by the way.
Sorry?
Are you calling the Bank of Ghana, by the way?
No, we do not have intentions of calling them on the
I think
show.
it would be good to hear from them as well.
I'm sure that this has just been issued.
Unless you're saying that it's the board that is
This has just
filing
been issued, and we expect, like you also expect, that the Bank of Ghana will certainly provide us some explanation, probably contrary to the claims made by the second deputy that he was forced out, and that this was constructive dismissal, frustrated to resign. Okay.
Something small point in the defense of Parliament. Like 612 came from the executive. The bill was from the executive.
But that's why we vote for you as our representatives. That when they bring those things, you check them.
No,
now,
but we agree with this.
Now
we shouldn't politicize every institution in our country.